Hello guys, my name is Textureman and today I'm going to show you how to create product visualization like this in KeyShot. If you don't have any experience in KeyShot, don't worry, KeyShot is a very simple rendering engine. If you want to download these tutorial files and 3D model, visit my Patreon page, link is in the description. Let's render. The first step, as always, is to import our 3D model. Doesn't really matter if you go and click import or open. And I'm just going to import this beats FBX file. Import, and this is how it looks in the KeyShot. Now we are going to move this model a little bit, so click on this beats FBX file type and click on the move tool, and we are just going to play with this camera view a little bit, so maybe like this. Alright, this is looking really good, and yeah, maybe just a little bit rotate like this. Just a little bit. This is all right. Now I'm going to the environment tab. I'm going to turn off this ground shadow. All right. And I'm going to create the new camera view. So click on the camera, add new camera, change name to main camera. All right. I'm going to use this quarters grid to make sure it's completely in the middle. And I'm going to use more orthographic focal length, something like 90 millimeters, and I'm just going to use the slider to match the reference image, so maybe like this, a little bit like this, and this will be something like 700 or maybe 750. I'm going to turn off this grid. I'm going to save camera and lock the position. Now, when we got this lock camera, we can't really move around. So we need to go back to free camera, and now we can rotate around this 3D model. And if we click on this main camera, we are back to this camera view. So this is pretty handy. Before we start creating materials, we need to change a couple things. So we are going to the lighting tab. We are going to click on the product rendering preset, and we are going back to environment. We are going to the settings. We are going to use the color, solid color white. You can use black or red, whatever you like, but I'm going for the white background. Now we can apply simple materials, and then we are going to create the lighting. So I'm going to my material library, and I'm going to my folder paint, rough, and I'm going to use this paint material rough. Double click on this. I'm going to make it a little bit darker, something to like this, and also I'm going to make it much more shiny. Now I'm going to find this shiny metal, so I'm going to the metal, anodized, polish, and I'm just going to drag and drop this material. Now we are going to apply this leather material, and I think I'm going to use soft shiny leather. Again, just drag and drop, double click on this leather, make it much more reflective, and I'm going to delete this texture and this texture, and this is like good starting point to create actual lighting, and then we are coming back and we create all the materials, and I would say we are going to create master materials. So let's click on the environment. We are going to click on this button to add new environment. We are going to call this main environment. All right, we are going to use the highest resolution, and we want this to be black color. So this canvas is completely black. That means there is no light. Now I'm going to create the new light. So add new pin. I'm going to make this pin much more bigger. And also I'm going to increase brightness, and you can see this pin or this light got like really hard edges. So I'm going to make these edges much more softer. So something to like this, and you can see this light is also soft. So I can move this pin like this on this canvas, or I can click on this button to set highlight. And now if I click on this part, we can see the highlight is on this part. So I'm going to use these sliders to match exact position from reference image. So I'm going to like this. even more, so something to like this. This is actually nice. And also I'm going to bring these much more up. All right, this is our first pin. Now I'm going to duplicate this pin and I'm just going to move it like this. I'm going to make this brightness a little bit less. And I'm going to use these sliders again to make it on the exact position. So maybe like this and like this. All right. Now I'm going to duplicate this again and I'm going to move it like this. I'm going to make it smaller, a little bit more brighter. And again, I'm going to use these sliders to match exact position. So maybe like this and like this. All right. Duplicate again. Move it a little bit more up. Make it bigger. All right. And again, these sliders. Duplicate again, move it to the other side, make the brightness a little bit less, and again these sliders to match exact position. Alright, we can see how it looks. It starts looking really good even with these basic materials. Duplicate this light, move it right here. I'm going to increase my brightness and I'm going to move it a little bit left and actually maybe more to the right side. All right, and a little bit down. Duplicate this light, make it smaller, also less bright, maybe like this. Duplicate this light again, less bright, and maybe like this, just to use it as fill light. So maybe like this. All right. Duplicate again, bring this a little bit up, increase brightness, and again I'm going to use these sliders. All right. Duplicate again, and I'm going to bring these down. More to the left side and a little bit up. Now we can click on this, done, because we finished the lightning and we are going to render these HDRI in high resolution. All right, and now we can start working on these materials. So let's start with this base material. Double click on this plastic. When you look at the reference image, you can see there is some kind of noisiness in this black plastic material. So I'm going to the texture, bump, and I'm going to use the noisy texture. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller and a little bit less visible. So maybe like this. and I'm going to the free camera, make it much more bigger so we can see what's going on. All right, double click on this, and we are going to the material graph. We are going to duplicate this texture, so hold Alt and just drag and drop. We are going to use this texture to our refractive index. All right, and double click on this texture. We are going to make this a little bit, I would say, a little bit brighter. This bump height will be higher, and this magnitude value will be also a little bit higher. And it looks completely ugly, so we need to use for this texture something like converter. So click on this line, and we are going to the utilities, and we need to use this color to number. All right, we are going to clean this graph. I'm going to click on this color to number, and I'm going to use value like 1.25 and 1.55. And we can see now how it looks, and we can already see some kind of noisiness. All right, I'm going to make these a little bit less, so something like this. All right, I'm going back to my camera view. I'm going to close this material graph, and this is our base material. So let's finish this metal polish material. Double click on this metal material, and we are just going to make it slightly rough. And we are going to the labels, and we are going to add our branding. So I'm going to the metal. I'm going to open my aluminum basic. I'm going to use this rough aluminum, and I'm going to my opacity channel, and I'm going to use this texture mask 001. All right, I'm going to use the UV. All right, this is good. Now I'm going to the label properties, and I'm just going to make it much more shiny. And I'm going to use the color, and I'm going to change this color to something to like this, like really dark polish aluminum. Now let's work on this leather material. So double click on this leather, and I'm going to change this to plastic. All right, I'm going to use something to like this, almost completely black color as the diffuse, and this will be completely white. I'm going to make it more shiny, and I'm going to the texture. I'm going to use the bump, double click, and I'm going to use this leather texture. I'm going to change this box to UV. All right, and I'm going to use it like this, so it's not so much visible. So let's create this cloth material right here. I'm going to the camera, free camera, and I'm just going to make it much more closer. And I'm going to select this part and this part. I'm going to the plastic, and I'm going to use just the basic plastic. All right, I'm going to use this one. Double click on this, and I'm going to make it less reflective. I'm going to make it much more rough. All right, and this will be 1.5. And I'm going to the texture. I'm going to use the bump texture, double click, and I'm going to use this cloth texture. I'm going to use UV mapping type, and I'm just going to make it less visible. So let's go to the material graph. Just again copy this texture. We are going to use it as diffuse. I'm going to use the color invert. Double click on this texture. We are going to bring this to 3, and this will be like 0.4. All right, and we got like this cloth texture. I'm going back to my camera view. Now let's create this headband texture. So I'm going to find the rubber material. So I'm going to the plastic. I'm going to use the rubber, just drag and drop. Double click on this rubber. And I'm going to use this diffuse color a little bit higher value, or a little bit more brighter. And I'm going to make these a little bit more reflective, so maybe like this. That's good. All right, and I'm going to make it a little bit more shiny. And I'm going to use also the texture, noisy texture. I'm going to scale it just a little bit, or actually I'm going to let these as default. Now let's create these details down there. So I'm going to the free camera and I'm just going to use for these the glass, but I'm going to use this heavy frosted glass. So just drag and drop. And for this material right here, I'm going to use the plastic. So I'm going to the plastic and I'm going to use the hard rough plastic. Double click on this. I'm going to make it black and just a little bit more shiny. All right, and this pin right here, this will be like the chrome rough material. So I'm going to the basic and chrome rough material. All right, and also for this chrome rough material, I'm going to click on this LED, click on this and just properties. Yeah, it's the same material, that's good. All right, and actually I'm going to use the branding for the top part as well. So let's create the branding. Double click on this material, labels. I'm going to the aluminum basic, aluminum rough, just drag and drop. We are going to use this opacity, texture mask 002. We are going to use the UV. This is all right. And I'm going to these label properties. I'm going to the color. I'm going to make it much more darker, maybe like this, and a little bit more shiny. Yeah, so it looks really good. I'm going back to my camera view. So let's start with this reflection and I'm going to this edit, add geometry, and I'm going to use the plane. And I'm going to the position, click on the plane, and I'm going to make it much more bigger. All right, something to like this. Double click on this plane. We are going to use this plane as the ground. We want reflection to be white. We don't need any shadows. We need to clip geometry below the ground, and I'm going to make the reflection contrast 1. Now I'm going back to my scene, move tool, and I'm going to make this a little bit more like this. All right, this looks good. Maybe a little bit more up. All right. We need to create something like this reflection disappear on the edge. So double click on this plane, go to the texture. We are going to right click on this texture and we are going to use the color gradient. Click on this. We are going to bring this a little bit to the right side. And we are going to use these as spherical. All right, and we need to make this value something to like this. And now you can see this reflection almost disappear. So the last step is to create final adjustments. So we are going to the lightning. We're gonna make sure it's in the product rendering preset. I'm going to the image, I'm going to use the photographic, I'm going to use the linear contrast, and I'm going to bump up a little bit this exposure. Also make sure I'm going to make it a little bit more bluish, this product render, and also a little bit more this contrast. We can also use the denoise, but be careful, you have to use just lower value because we got this noisy texture, and when you use denoise, it will make your noisy texture disappear. It will be just the soft. So I'm going to turn this off. And now we need to render this image. So I'm going to the render and I'm going to change this aspect ratio of this render. So I'm going to use the 16:9, and I'm going to the camera, and I'm going to the free. I'm going to use something to like this, make it a little bit more from distance. All right, this is good. Actually, maybe like this. All right, and we are going to use the 4K resolution. I need the clown path. Options, we need the custom control. You can also use the maximum sample, set it at 256, and you will have like really fast rendering and smooth image. But if you want to step up the quality, but it will cost you a lot of time, but I still recommend to use custom control. And we are going to use 256 samples, 16 rainbow seas, 2 anti-aliasing, 3 shadow, 3 global illumination, and sharper texture filtering. Now we are going to render this image. Alright, so this is how it looks when we finish our rendering. This is our beauty pass, and this is our clown pass for easy selection. And this will be like really simple retouching. So the first step is to right click and convert this layer to smart object. And I'm going to the filter, camera raw filter. And we are just going to adjust it a little bit. So maybe a little bit more bluish. Alright, just a little bit exposure. Contrast. Alright, highlights just slightly, shadow. Alright, and legs like this. We are going to play with this texture. Alright. And I'm going to use also these DAs. If you don't know what these sliders are doing, just move it to the left and move it to the right, and you will exactly know what's happening. So this is good. Now we are going to adjust it a little bit more. So I'm going to click on this layer. For the easy selection, I'm going to use this magic vein tool. And now when I click on this yellow color, the yellow color is selected. So I'm going to adjust these paint right here. So this is good. All right, also this, and I'm going to the curves and just a little bit more contrast. All right, I'm going to select these caps, again curves, and again, just a little bit more contrast like this. All right, and also this cloth, curves, and just kick it a little bit more. And this is our final rendering. So guys, thank you for watching. If you got any questions, please let me know down in the comment section. If you want to support me, hit the like button and subscribe button. And if you want to download this 3D model or 3D scene, visit my Patreon page, link is in the description. So, have a nice day and have a nice render. Bye bye!